So as Alan was saying, we're about local people and local place and local economy. We're from Bendigo in Australia, and we've been working on this idea for between 3 and 5 years, depending on who you speak to on the board. Bendigo has a 60,000-year-old peer-to-peer distributed local economy that operated here with the local Dja people. But BHive, the name actually came from a building in the middle of Bendigo that was the mining stock exchange. We're a gold mining town, and the BHive building is just being restored at the moment, and it was the birthplace of the post 1850s economy, and so we like the metaphorical nature element to BHive, but we also it's also come from the history of our local place. We have a great local supportive community in Bendigo who have been with us on the journey. We're about owning our local digital sharing economy together, and our first mission is to create a digital platform that allows us to create, own and run sharing enterprises and provides access to local goods and services. And we're about to launch our first digital platform, which is a bit exciting. Our purpose is pretty wide. We want to build local enterprises. Once we get going, we want to be an incubator for local sharing economy cooperative enterprise. And localism is pretty big. Belonging is a very big part of what we're doing. We want to help build an economy from the neighbourhood up that starts with all of us as human beings and neighbours creating connection locally and social capital. And it's been interesting, all the conversations that I've been hearing around the world about the importance of neighbours since this COVID lockdown started. There's a lot of people that have reconnected with their neighbours in a way that they weren't before this happened. So hopefully the timing is good. And the last one is that there's going to be a percentage of all the money spent on all the cooperative sharing enterprises is going to go into local projects that aim to eradicate poverty and restore the ecology locally. So instead of 30% going to shareholders in New York, we're saying a percentage is going to go to the actual bottom line, which is looking after planet and looking after people. We have a brilliant group of people in Bendigo who have set up BHive and are working on BHive from the development side, from the cooperative running of cooperative side, from leadership and governance, and business systems and business organisation. My background is in environmental engineering and environmental education and culture change. So I've spent 20 years now working with governments and communities and businesses on change for sustainability, culture change for sustainability. So that's where we're coming from. We all totally understand that we have big problems that we face, and what we're realising is that none of them can be solved in isolation. They all have to be solved together. So whether it's economic stagnation or biodiversity or consumption or climate, whether it's social well-being, even racism, they all come from othering of what actually matters. And we've got to build them in, and we've got to make sure that they're a part of the new economy movement. Because otherwise we could create a new economy that has a lot of the old problems. So that's a bit of an overview of BHive. The first piece of software that we're developing is called Villages, and I'm going to give you a bit of a taste of Villages and how it will work. It's going to be the centerpiece of BHive. So all of the other sharing economy projects or enterprises that we develop are going to sit around the outside of Villages, and your identity and your reputation in Villages will go from Villages out to those other enterprises and back to Villages. So we're about to launch this in Bendigo in October. And this is the first screen that that you'll see when you come to villages. And you enter your address, and it tells you, it puts you on a map, and it tells you what's happening on villages around your house. We've set it to 1 kilometre from your house. Obviously, as we develop and there's more urban and then there's more rural communities that join, that distance will need to be massaged or moved around, and even individually tailored. But for now, we're just setting it at 1 kilometre. So it'll tell you what's happening around you, what things are being shed, and how many people are part of villages. Villages will have these features. You'll be able to direct message people, plan things together. You'll be able to post publicly to your village. You'll be able to manage the people in your village, run events, and set up a sharing library for stuff and skills. And that's all going to be gifting in villages. So it's continuing what we do with our neighbours and improving what we do with our neighbours, and helping to find the other neighbours that share values with you, or have skills that you need, or things that you need, or that you can share with them. So the first one is to think about is people within villages, and there's two things that you can do with people. You can add people to your village that live within 1 kilometre of your house, and they have to agree to be in your village. And once you both agree, then you are in each other's village. And the first thing to get across is that everyone has their own village. There's not a particular place that is a village. You are the centre of your own village, and everyone manages who is involved in that village. You can add friends across town because you already have a relationship with those people. But the hub is local and walkable, and you're really talking about that idea of a 5 or 10 minute neighbourhood. What can we get from our local community that we need that is walkable? So you can set up events, and that's pretty simple. You can set up your sharing library and manage that sharing library. You can plan things together. So if you would like to have a conversation with your local community about a park or an issue or a project, you can set up a plan, and that's a spot where a discussion can have on a particular topic. You can post publicly. You can give things away or ask for things. You can as our local street does. We have a Facebook group in our local street, and there's often comments on there like, "Where are my kids?" or "Has anyone got a chili?" or "I need a cup of flour," or something. So we want to make sure that that's you can post publicly to those people so that you can get what you need in real time. There's another layer to villages, and that's communities of interest. So your village is 1 kilometre around your house, and it's your friends across town. But you can also set up and join communities of interest across your town. So these could be anything that people want to set up. It could be a card playing club, or it could be a toy library, or it could be a library of things, or a repair cafe, or whatever people would like to get going that operates at the geographic town or city level. So anyone can join these, and they have the same functions as a village, except they don't have a sharing library. But anyone can join across town, and they can be on whatever local community topic that you would like to have them on. So everyone has their own village. Everyone can set up and join lots of community groups across your local town or your local place. Around the outside of villages, the idea is that your reputation and your identity starts there, and then you can your BHive can become an incubator for other cooperative sharing economy services. And the idea is that these things sit with your village's identity and reputation, But then you can either earn income from or pay to use or help to set up or found sharing economy enterprises that are scaled to the local place. And I'll tell you about our first one in a moment that we're working on. But the idea is that 4% of all the spending from all of those projects goes to our local charities that aim to build the bottom line in your local place. So the first sharing enterprise cooperative that we're setting up is the Bendigo Car Sharing Cooperative. And we've just finished a feasibility study with 7 of the major businesses in Bendigo who are very keen to have outsourced their fleet cars. And so they're spending a lot of money on organisational fleet vehicles. And so we've just done a study saying, well, what if a local car sharing cooperative ran those fleet vehicles for each organisation? And what we've realised is that can provide a financial bottom line that enables us to then start community car sharing. And we'd go through villages for community car sharing and say to people, you know, who wants a car in your local place? So, you know, we've all been hearing about, thinking about, seeing all this talk of the sharing economy since late last century, and the problem is that the billionaires got hold of it, and so the value is being taken away from local place, and it's and the 150-year-old hard-won workers' rights are disappearing, and profit and spending is disappearing. There's a video on the Ford website of what they're going to do with autonomous cars in cities, and when they dump apps and cars in local places, there's no one working in the local place in transport anymore, and everyone is paying Ford for transport, and it's not an economic model that's going to benefit local places at all. What we've realised in our work in Bendigo is that Bendigo, we've got 115,000 people in Bendigo. Bendigo households spend $2.5 billion a year on goods and services, which it seems like an extraordinary figure. But imagine if we could localise even some of that, you know, in different sharing cooperative enterprises. Our plan is that our work stays in Bendigo and our spending stays in Bendigo, rather than leaving town. Now, another aspect of this is that because you're a member of the BHive cooperative, you also own collectively your own data, and privacy is a huge part of this. So no one in villages will know where you live. They'll just know that you live within a kilometre of them, and your identity and your reputation starts with you. We have been talking to an organisation called Holochain, who I believe some of you know, over the last couple of years about having data that is not only cooperatively owned, but is managed and organised by the individual and stored on local devices. But they're not quite ready to go yet, but we're still having that conversation. But on BHive, because you're a local person in a local place with a local address who is a member of the local cooperative, there won't be fake people or bots on BHive villages, and there won't be advertising, and no one's going to be selling your data. Cooperatives, it's been interesting talking about cooperatives in Bendigo because the Bendigo economy began with cooperatives. There was about 150 cooperatives here in 1850. And the Bendigo Bank actually started as a building society whose aim was to help local miners own their own home. So we actually have a lot of history of cooperatives. We're very inspired by Michael Schumann's work on local economics and local economic development. And he talks about how we need to maximise local ownership, diversity, models of triple bottom line success, and to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And And we've also been inspired by the story of Mondragon in Spain, where a network of hundreds of local cooperatives is providing most of the employment and economic development for that region. So what we want to do is the same thing, create a network of cooperatives. And Michael also likes our work. Some of you will be wondering, how have you managed to build a platform as a local cooperative? And the fundraising journey has been great fun, I'll tell you that. We've had lots of conversations with people who have funding, whether they're venture capitalists or impact investors or social impact investors who start out very, very smiley and nice in the first conversation and very quickly turn into a capitalist, horrible person by the third conversation because they want to own what you're doing and they want to sell it. But we started in Bendigo. This was our pitch night we had a few years ago, and these gorgeous local people donated $35,000, which enabled us to set our cooperative up and to get our local events going and to pay for the costs of having a desk to sit at. Last year, the city of Greater Bendigo, after a lot of talk and conversations with people at different levels and departments of our local government, they set up an innovation grant for the first time, and we were awarded that in June last year, which was $60,000, which was great, and that has enabled us to build our first villages platform. So those of you who know about the costs of software development will know that we don't have a lot left from that $60,000 in building villages. So the idea is that BHive is just one ladder over that wall that we're facing as we move into the next 10 or 15 years, and there are hundreds of thousands and millions of people around the world who are working on brilliant, innovative solutions to all of these problems, and BHive is just one of those. But what we like to think is that this is a slide from Janine Benyus, the author of Biomimicry, who talks about how we need to have a local economy like a forest that is deeply rooted in place, that's open source, that shares access to materials in a never-ending flow, that the waste is not a concept, and it's also quite beautiful. So we like to think of BHive as a bit of an example of that. Lots of people are saying, can we have a BHive, or can we set up a BHive? And there's 15 places around Australia that we're having conversations with now about what that might mean. Our idea is that we scale, we kind of change the nature of scale. We don't want to create a BHive behemoth that ends up some sort of global giant. What we want to do is scale in a replication way, so that other places can replicate the model for their local place. So each one is locally owned and locally operated, but each one that joins is a partner to the others, so that we can share access to all of the learnings we have and all the software we have and all the ideas we have and all the economic development studies that we have, so that we can set them up. There are some places that have lots of cooperatives already, but they might like villages, and there are some places that already have local economy projects that are brilliant, and we might like to set up partnerships so that we can share ideas and what we're doing. Doug Rushkoff said the only things you need for a thriving economy are people with skills and people with needs, and we want to match them together. So that's a really brief overview of BHive, because I want to open up to some questions and some conversation. But we're very open to ideas about next steps. We're talking to the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals and to the Federation Cooperative about how we could create a project that allows lots of places to set up and operate and own their own local beehive. So so that's us, and I might stop sharing and so I can see all your faces, and we'll see how we go with the conversation from here.
Well, that was wonderful, Ian. Thank you very much. Can we give Ian a clap, please? A virtual clap, or you know, we've got more people have joined since we started, so you know, that was a very, very wonderful example, if you like, live example of localization. And you know, we've got people here from on the call today from Margaret River. Matteo, I believe, is now in Kalgoorlie. Swan Valley's been mentioned. No, they are all localized areas that could benefit from you know, the work that Ian has done and is now making available to others to take it a little bit further afield, and then hopefully eventually to anybody who really is walking the talk as far as localization is called. Because again, you know, part of the convening group here, we've been living it for multiple years now. It's not just something that has come into place recently. JP, you know, she's been part of a global thinking but local focus for a long time, and you know, has much wisdom to impart. But we're not getting to these people enough for them to impart that knowledge and then for it to be implemented. So knowledge is absolutely useless without the implementation. So I will open it up to questions. Please raise your hand if you have a question to ask live, or if you pop it in the Q&A or the chat, Adam and I will try and follow that and make that happen. But I saw Mitra's hand go up there. So Mitra, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, hi Ian. Great presentation, thanks. Something was unclear to me. You said that you add the people you want into your village. How do you then find the people who are in your neighborhood who you don't already know? Because on Nextdoor, when you join, you end up meeting a whole bunch of the people who you've never met in person, and that's actually one of its powerful things. And it wasn't clear to me how you do that on yours.
Yeah, there's a page for managing people, and so you'll see a list of and a photo of all the people that live within a kilometre of you. So you can send them a little nudge to say, I'd like to have you in my village. And you can also see a list of possible shares and things that you might like, and you can follow that through to a person who might have it, and you can add them to your village. So yeah, there'll be a page for managing people.
Thank you, Mitra. Anybody else got a raised hand there? I know there's some people have put their static photos up, but if you have a question, Craig first, and then please either just let me know in the chat or let me know with one of the reaction hands that you would like to ask a question. But Craig, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Sure, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everybody. It's so good to see you all. This is really exciting stuff, and so grateful to be here with you all. And I had a very brief chance to look at the video and was stoked as I turned around to see the Indigenous flag up there, which is a very big deal for me, working to connect at-risk youth wherever they may be using pre-existing infrastructure, and FaceTime with celebrities to encourage the kids to engage in their local youth liaison groups, and using celebrities to through my film TV work and youth outreach work to introduce those young people to people who can mentor them in whatever that individual has a passion for. So that's my burn, and I guess I'm looking forward to learning how BHive might assist getting my local community behind me in a way that is tangible for them, and I guess that's what I'm curious to learn more about. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
No worries. No worries. I mean, I guess each local place is going to set up a different BHive, because each local place has got different, there's different aspects to it, or different type of economy, or different strengths, or whatever. So it'll manifest itself in different ways. I mean, at the moment we've got villages which will be coming in October to people in Bendigo, and we're going to find out what people in Bendigo want from it, or what they don't want from it, or how they're going to use it. And we'll be doing testing in the lead up, but I think each local place is going to use it differently. So I guess there's no easy answer to your question about how would it specifically work in your context. And it might not in all contexts, but yeah, but I think it will. And we've been very inspired by many things over the years, but I was involved in a project in the early 2000s called Sustainability Street, and we worked with 300 communities around Melbourne and Sydney, and it was about bringing neighbourhoods of people together around sustainable living, and it was really powerful. And the community benefits to Sustainability Street were actually more powerful than the environmental benefits, which were good. So yeah, it's kind of there's been lots written over the years about local economic development, and we've read nearly all of them, and hopefully it's something that neighbours can cross over lines of different cultures and different places. But we will see. We'll wait and see. So Craig, I don't have a it's going to work this way for you.
Sure, Ian. Thank you very much. I'm excited to learn more and more. It's exciting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Ian, Andrew, would you like to unmute and ask Ian your question? You need to unmute, Andrew.
Hi.
Oh, yeah. There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Cool. Yes.
Hey guys, sorry I was late to the presentation. I was having some memory issues and had to shut everything down on my computer just to get Zoom to load. So I missed the start. I'm wondering, over time, how does the platform cater for kind of meta level conversations about the community vision and planning, and being able to maybe feed that back to something like a local government without having the local government host the conversations, if you know what I mean, so that the community can design their own hosting platform?
No, I know exactly what you mean. So what we've got is a folder with a whole lot of ideas that we want to get to once we have 5,000 or 10,000 members, and we would have built that in from the start, but we don't have the cash. But what we want to do is, once we have the numbers of people on the platform, is we want to set up participatory democracy and crowd writing, or getting the ideas of the crowd or the wisdom of the crowd. And definitely our local government is even excited about the possibilities for that, because they know the town hall meeting died about 25 years ago, and you only get the angry person and the person selling something and the person running for local government who turn up. So they want different solutions. When they have good ideas, they want to be able to go out to the community and find out what people think in an easy way. So we've got that parked there as a big folder saying, you know, one of our next steps is to, once we have villages up and running, is to add in a layer of participatory democracy, decision-making software, crowd writing software, or whatever, so that we can achieve that. And you know, hopefully by then, a big part of what we also have is, you know, everyone is a member and everyone is a real person, and everyone can has their own identity that they can use to feed into those processes, so that we don't have a, I don't know, we have the Bendigo Advertiser here, and reading the comments on the local newspaper is a makes you want to leave humanity forever and head to another planet, which yeah, I think is a really, it's horrible. So what we need to do is turn that around, and we need real local people participating as active citizens in local place. So I don't have any answers for you, Andrew, but it's definitely on our radar for when we get going.
And what are your revenue models? If I could just tag on an extra question, like what are your revenue and funding strategy? Have you, yeah, I mean, obviously you could do this as a member kind of based model, but it's cool. It's much cooler if people don't have to pay. It'd be great if you could license it to a local government and every citizen of the township gets access.
That would be awesome. And once again, I kind of have to give you two answers. And the first answer is, as a group of volunteer directors who have raised a total of $130,000 since we started, and they're about to launch our first platform, people will be subscribing to villages at $5 a month to get access. And we think that's actually not all that much. And we're going to be pushing pretty hard that you are not the product on this platform. You own this platform and it's yours, and there's no bots and there's no advertising, and that's worth paying a little bit for. So our first revenue model is that people will subscribe to villages. When the car sharing cooperative is set up, people will, that'll operate like a normal car sharing business. People will pay by the hour to access the car. And a small amount of the money from the car sharing cooperative will come back to villages and the BHive Cooperative. And as more local cooperatives join in the network, then hopefully we can look at making it free for people to access, or you know, other revenue streams. But at the moment, we're going to put out to people that you know, this is a different kind of platform, and it's, instead of being the product, it's yours, and it's worth paying for, especially when it's only $5 a month. It's not a lot of money, but we'll find out what people think about that in a few months' time.
Right. Excellent, thank you.
No worries.
I've just been responding to a few messages there. Anybody else got a hand up? Anybody else got a question for Ian?
Yeah.
Kit Scott was.
Okay, Kit, and then Mitra after Kit, please.
Thanks, Ian. My question about you know, like your BHive model in Bendigo, when you've been sharing about it, it's making me think, like, how did you get people to switch, let's say, from the Facebook Buy Nothing groups or the meetup? Because it sounds like there's many things that already exist, but the BHive is just having them all in one place. So if I was sharing to people, like, the Facebook Buy Nothing groups in my local area, or the meetups or Facebook events or Gumtree, and then like when people are switching from Facebook to Patreon, so that how to get people to switch from all those things but then to BHive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. We set up a Facebook group about 6 years ago called Bendigo Stuff Sharers, and the idea was that we would share access to things locally using Facebook, and because of the temporary nature of the feed, everything just disappears, and because you've got lots of fake people on there, and because there's no reputation or identity management at all, what happened was people started saying, well, you know, you can borrow my bike trailer. And within about 3 months, it was just about giving away stuff and getting stuff. And we had 12 administrators 24 hours a day managing bad behaviour. The idea with villages is that it's the sharing library is for things you can loan and borrow. It's not really for giving away and getting stuff, which is what happens on a lot of those Facebook platforms. And they become a bit of a grab thing. I don't know whether you've noticed, they're not the nicest places to hang around in. So we're hoping people will see the difference. Definitely, a lot of people are already on those platforms, and it will be interesting to see whether we can get people across to villages. But a big part of our communications and community engagement and marketing over the next few months is going to be about ownership, and it's going to be about privacy, and it's going to be about belonging and connecting to neighbours, and that's a huge part of what we're the story that we're telling, and it's something you just do not get on Facebook. So yeah, you can ask me next February how we went, and I'll say, I don't know, dismal failure. Everyone's happy to just grab stuff on Facebook, or people might be coming across, and it'll be a verbal thing. It'll be a word of mouth thing. One of the things about a local marketing and communications and engagement campaign is that you know, our board are well-respected local people, and we know lots of local people. So you know, there's not many people in Bendigo that are not going to find out about villages. And you know, if it was a national platform taking out an advertisement in the local paper, some people would find out about it. But there's going to be a lot of people talking about villages locally. And the first part of our engagement campaign is to recruit 30 local champions who are going to be getting their neighbours on board and hosting lunches with their neighbours and cups of tea, and hopefully face-to-face by October. So we have a real campaign that we're going to get into locally, and in that way it's a bit different to a global or a national platform. But we're also crossing our fingers.
So just to corroborate what you're saying there, Ian, you know, we had a chat a week or so ago, and I've been working on something that's highly concentrated as well, just in one suburb. And I can wholeheartedly say that once you reach that critical mass, and we've got over 1,200 now in Kingsley alone, who are starting to you know, to build relationships with each other, not just a quick chat. And the spin-off for that is that once you bring in the fact that they've got ownership, then they see themselves as being an integral part of the community. And you know, that is the critical part. Who has ownership? And you're paying your $5 per week to have that ownership. So, you know, I think that if we introduce your system here, that the uptake will be very high, very, very quickly. So, Mitra, you did say you had a question?
I mean, I had a similar question, but slightly different. I mean, I can understand why you've got a better model than Facebook, and I can understand how it might even be a better platform at one point. And I can totally understand your need for a revenue model, whether that's wherever that comes from. That you got to fund the developers in some way. I'd assumed you were going to open source it, but it doesn't sound like it. But the big problem here seems to be a chicken and egg issue, and we've got tons of people in our local area who are on a Facebook group, both one for the street, one for the neighborhood, and then the slightly broader, more specialized ones like the local unconditional giving group and stuff like that. And even if your system was better, the process of switching people is chicken and egg, because during that process, you're going to have most of the people on the Facebook group and one or two on your group. So your group's not going to be very good because there won't be anyone to talk to because they're all still on Facebook. I'm talking about at the beginning transition. Plus, you've got to pay $5 a month to get on it. And I don't see the $5 a month as a problem, but that's a massive barrier to people switching. Especially when you switch, the only person to talk to is the one other person who's already switched. So I'm betting that model's going to have to change if you're actually going to get it to work. At least some way to actually get people to move over.
Yeah, for sure. I could be totally agreeing with you in 3 months' time, Mitra. I don't know, and I can see every point you've made is valid, and we've talked about each one of those a lot. We are going to make the software open source. The thing about BHive is that there's the software, but there's also the governance, and there's also the business model. So it's not just the software that local places will be doing. But yeah, we have an intense community engagement campaign planned to get local people aware of it and on board and using it. That's my background, is working with communities like that. So we definitely will be pulling out all straps to see if we can get people on the platform. And but you know, platforms do change, and I don't know, I haven't been on MySpace for years, but everyone was on MySpace, and now they're not on MySpace anymore. So things do change, and hopefully this is one that, you know, people will change towards.
I mean, I can imagine recommending that to our local resilience group, because of the disruption it would cause in the process while a few people had decided to move and everybody else was still on the old one. So therefore, it would be a negative step to move, even if in the end the result was better. And that's the challenge you've got to work with, especially in any area which has actually got, because I could imagine most of the places this would work well are the places which already have something functional on Facebook. So, because they'll be they're the more functional and integrated neighborhoods are the ones which are good starters for this kind of stuff. They'd be the first candidates if Facebook didn't exist, but it does.
Yeah, it totally does exist, and I totally understand what you're saying, and we're going to have as much of a crack as we can to make sure that we set something up that people will want to join locally. And but you know, there's no easy answers to any of the points you're raising, and I can totally see what you're talking about. I have 30 cups of tea booked in the next 2 months with 30 local community groups in Bendigo to let them know about villages and what it is, and who knows, each one of them could be using different platforms to communicate with each other, and some of them will join and some of them won't. But yeah, we're hoping that we've got enough there for people to want to make the shift over, for whether it's for ownership, or whether it's for privacy, or whether it's lack of advertising, or whether it's bots, or and down the track, if you are logging into your local car sharing cooperative through villages, and you're logging into your local food hub cooperative and logistics cooperative and local renewable energy cooperative with your village's identity and reputation, then you've got a lot of other reasons to join the platform. So that's where we're heading. There's villages in the middle, and we've got a network of cooperatives. So over time, hopefully that changes, because if people want to own and work in and access their local cooperative sharing economy, they're going to need to be involved, and that means potentially shifting across from Facebook. But totally hear what you're saying.
Wow. I'm very conscious that we are, you know, approaching the hour. There's about 8 minutes to go. I'd like to just hear, there's some comments in the chat. I'd like to just bring one or two people online who really see the benefit of this. And, you know, if it was to be piloted in Western Australia, who you know, who might like to get involved in a trial or that pilot, or just your general feedback. So can somebody raise a hand and I'll bring them. Is that you, Craig? Yep. Okay, Craig, you have a unmute and let people know.
Yeah, just some thoughts that we've recently had a local food cooperative come together really amazingly rapidly in a really grassroots level. As deputy chair of an organisation addressing homelessness and housing injustice, and being aware of other groups within the community who are looking to support people and environment and see positive change. I'm thrilled at what you've said, Ian. I think that this journey ahead, I've just got this feeling that it's yes, let's cross our fingers, eyes, toes, noses, and ears. But I think that that from everything that I've heard, what you're presenting here is something that I can see in this local Margaret River community really being embraced, and I hope that I can be a part of that.
Great. And you know, if there's already a local food cooperative there, that's probably a good place to start. To say, you know, have a look at this model, and you could put villages underneath your food cooperative to help spread your food cooperative, but also to see how you could get others going.
I will most certainly make all of this wonderful stuff, make them aware of this pronto. Yeah.
I think maybe Adam, I might be just not quite. Well, for me, okay, I saw Facebook, or I was in the conversations around Facebook way before Facebook became popular. You know, 2 or 3 years before Facebook became popular. So sometimes there just has to be that movement, there has to be the commitment, there has to be the desire, there has to be the timing. And the timing right now, with the defragmentation that we've had with the pandemic of our global economy, suggests that we can't be held, or we won't be held to ransom again by other nations. We have everything that we need to be self-sufficient in Australia, and we certainly can maximise that self-sufficiency when we talk locally as well. So sometimes an idea is just a little bit too soon, and it's, you know, it's like surfing. You have to be ready to jump on that wave when the time is right. You can't be ahead of the wave, you can't be beyond the wave. If you want the perfect ride, you have to be ready to jump onto that wave. And I think BHive is ready to jump onto that wave. Adam, would you like to end on that note?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ian. This was very interesting. I mean, we'll continue these discussions. Someone mentioned Jimmy Murphy in the chat now, so that was perfect segue. So this is the first event in a series which will run every second Monday until Christmas, same time, 11:30 to 12:30 WA time. So it's going to be a mix between sort of national people from all over Australia and local new economy builders, as we call them. So the next one is with Jimmy Murphy on the, 13th, Alan, I think it is. And he's part of the town team movement. So it's going to be about that, and which is all obviously tied into the whole localization and all these things. So I think, should we end here, Alan, or what do you think?
So we've got 3 minutes to go.
Should we ask Ian if he wants to say, you know, do you have any final advice for people? You've done this now for 6 years. I think it would be sort of interested in, like, what do you think we should do? People who want to do this, what do you want to say to us?
I guess we're now, we've been working on this for Bendigo for 5 years, but you know, the model isn't going to succeed if it's just Bendigo. We actually need a network of places that are working together around Australia and around the world. So lots of people have been getting in touch with us and saying, can we do it, and how do we do it, and whatever. And all we're saying at the moment is we'd love to work with other places to help them set up their own BHive cooperative, and we'd like to learn from other places about the projects that are currently happening in those places. Our plan next year is to be working with up to 10 local places that want to set up a BHive cooperative to help spread it around, and that could happen in any number of ways. So if there are people who are interested in you know, piloting villages or of you know, learning more about the BHive model, we're really happy to talk to everyone about that. It's, you know, there's different possible models about how this could be spread, and we don't want to create one top-down model. We want to work with local places to find out what strengths and skills they've already got, and what they need. So this conversation's great, and yeah, I don't have a cookie cutter, one size fits all approach to give you, but if you're interested in having another conversation with BHive about how it might work in your local place, or you're keen, very happy to talk.
Excellent. Can you just pop maybe a email address or somewhere they can contact you in the chat, please, Ian? I think that's it. We're on the hour. We'll wrap that up. The people that we bring on to these webinars, we will have vetted them first. It won't be a case of anybody can just jump into one of our NENA Perth Hub webinars. It will be about having the right intention and really having a sharing mindset. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ian. That was absolutely wonderful.